All right, we're good. Okay. Welcome everybody. As I said a few minutes ago, not everybody was online. If there's questions that come up along the way, you can. I'm fine if you just blurt them out because it'll be tangible to what we're talking to at that time. If you feel more comfortable putting it in the chat, that's fine too. I'd love it if you feel comfortable being on video, if it's appropriate for you to be. It helps me just making sure that I hit the mark. I see body language and such, and I'll just try to do my best. And yeah, I think that's it. At the end of the session, Addie's on the call today. Addie's an employee of Grupo, and she's a high performance athlete. She's a runner, discipline 800 meters, and maybe at some point she might slip into some 1500 meters, go a little bit longer, but she's a phenomenal runner, knows a lot about what we do and utilizes some of the things that we do. So uh, Addie will help me kind of just facilitate the meeting, make sure questions are asked. At the end, you'll get an email from Addie with links. There are a few links that I'd like to share. I like to share things that I come in contact with that are meaningful to me. So there's a couple of people that I'll talk to later on. I'm by no means affiliated with this one person, but I really like her content and I find it to be so on the money. I'll share a couple links that we will share through an email, but you can see them as we're going through. So here's what we'll cover off today. And we looked at overlap between power of protein and this session. Um, of course, protein is going to make it into any discussion around nutrition. I'm trying to keep the overlap as little as possible, but there are, I think, out of the 38 that were scheduled, I think there was only 8 that were in the previous session. So I thought it appropriate to go into a little bit of detail on the protein again. It's so important. So we'll cover some of that off. So basic nutrition today to start things off after some intros, some physiology, some minor stuff. I have an analogy as it relates to kind of an F1 car and our bodies. I think it's important to use some of those things to help get the points across. So hopefully that helps. I'll go over primary sources of energy within our bodies, like what we use, what macronutrients we use as fuel, how those can be stored in our body, the role of protein. And whenever you hear protein, you should couple it with exercise and resistance exercise in particular. Um, Protein is amplified, or the benefits of protein are really amplified when resistance training is combined with that. So we learn that through research. I've learned that through some of the people I get to interact with. Uh, Try to link those two in your mind. How much protein you need? Um, I cover that almost in every talk we do. Food is fuel, and why does it matter? How much fuel do I need? And then we'll have a bit of time for some question and answers. I hope to be about 10 to when we get to that point and allow for a few questions. And if there's questions after, you will have my email. Some of you already do. Um, I welcome an email from or a call from any one of you. I'm happy to talk about this stuff at any time if I can help. So who am I? My name's Darcy. I lead the organization here. Super grateful to have the team that we have here at Grupo. I've got about 30 years of experience in manufacturing, research, product development, um, technical services. So well-rounded. I was that before I came into running this business. I'm an endurance athlete. Why that matters is when you couple me being an endurance athlete and my scientific mind, I'm always trying to learn how my body responds differently to the things that I do. And I really encourage you to do the same. Um, like cause and effect, be a scientist, try something, see how it works for you or it doesn't, and then make an adjustment and constantly be doing that. Don't just listen to what I'm saying today. Don't listen to necessarily what you see in the news and social media. It's going to be all kinds of views out there. You have to find what works for you. You can use some of that stuff to try it out, but make sure that you're cause and effect. You're reflecting after you do something, see how that worked for you, and then make the step from there. Some key partnerships that we're involved with, COPSIN, that's a mouthful of an acronym. It's Canadian Olympic Paralympic Sport Institute Network. We're really blessed that we've been able to fuel high performance athletes in Canada since 2008. So I super proud that we get to fuel folks like Cycling Canada, Volleyball Canada, rowing, athletics. Um, but more importantly, as a business and what we do within this business for the people that we, our customers, is we've learned so much from working with them. So we've learned a lot about the use of protein, recovery, what's important to a high performance athlete often cascades down is important to us. So it's really shaped who we are as a business. There's one researcher that I put on here, Dr. Stu Phillips. Um, he's um, he's a researcher here in Canada. He at McMaster University. He's world renowned, and I've learned a ton by supporting some of his research projects over the years. So we've done quite a few with him and some of his researchers. So I love that I've had an opportunity to work alongside of him, be involved with some of his studies. So he's helped shape what we do as well. So into some basics. So food is fuel, and I'm going to lean into that a little bit later and all through this. Um, you should know there's three main sources of energy within the body. I know these are obvious to you, but this sets the stage for later. So carbs, fats, and protein. Carbs and protein, they have the same amount of calories per gram, 4 calories. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So if you're looking, someone says you should eat this many grams, or if they express it as a percent, maybe 25% should be fats or 30%. You have to remember that 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. So just be aware of that math. So carbs are they primarily fuel our higher intensity activity or movement. Fats, on the other hand, they drive some of the lower intensity stuff. So if I'm walking at a moderate pace, even I'm probably burning more fat than I am carbohydrates. When I start to go to moderate to higher pace running, that's when my fuel is going to be predominantly from carbs. It is important to know that both those systems are always in play. They're both always being utilized. It's just the one that would be leaned on more. If higher intensity, you're going to lean more on carbs, as an example. And I have a thing in red there, fuel your movement. That's something that I want to get across today is I want you to kind of eat um, the amount of food, which is your fuel, to support the movement that you choose, whatever that is. So here's my analogy. I've used this F1 car before a long time ago. I spoke at the university. It was a younger population. Um, but I went back there today because I think it's super important. Um, so on the left-hand side, first, this is an F1 car. Um, we likely will never, none of us will probably drive an F1 car. Fun fact, these are $18 million now per car. I'm surprised to learn that. I didn't know it was that high. Um, but as like this car, does the type of fuel matter that we put in this car. Of course it does. They're not putting the same level or same octane of fuel in this car as I would put in my Jeep. They use much higher. It's around 98% octane or 99 octane compared to what we do in, some of our normal cars. Does the amount of fuel matter that goes into this car? Does anybody know how much fuel goes in an F1 car at the start of a race? They race for about an hour and a half, typically. Do you think they put more fuel in the car um, than they need to get to the finish? They don't. There's a rule that they have to have at least 1 liter remaining in the tank when they finish this race. But what they do is they try to put in only the amount that they're going to need to cover the distance, the whatever it is. Um, like at the last race, Japanese Grand Prix, this is Kimi Antonelli. He won the race in 1 hour, 28 minutes. He would have used about 130 kilos of fuel, which is about 150 liters. So they only put enough fuel in this car to get it to the end. And part of the reason is they want it to be efficient at the end. They want that car to weigh as little as it can. If they finished with a full tank of gas, they'd be leaving a lot on the table. What if the car was, not racing an hour and a half? What if it was a 24-hour, race, like a Le Mans race? How would that change things? But what changes is they've got to stop many times. Um, and I like this analogy here because that's kind of more indicative of how we perform in a daily basis. So we need to constantly be eating frequent meals. Now, they don't stop every lap. Um, they stop about 100 and I think it's about 168 uh, kilometers. They would stop probably 18 times in a 24-hour, or actually more than that. It's probably about 30 times in the 24-hour race. And what guides them is they want to stop as little as possible, but they want to be as efficient as possible by not carrying so much fuel. So it's all pretty carefully calculated for them. But I do like the analogies here, and I think we should think of our bodies a little bit as an engine, a machine, because truly they are in many ways, even though no one's going to give me 18 million for my body. I think my body is more complex than these cars. And I'll get into that. So what happens when the cars run out of gas? Here's a clear analogy. Like we know they might coast around uh, the end of the lap. Maybe they run out just before the finish line and they can get across the finish line. But when you run out of gas, you're out of gas. And that's the same for us. Like I know we get low on energy, and I've talked to you about there's a few different energy systems. So if I run out of carbohydrates, which fuels my brain, um, maybe I can, survive on my fats, but maybe I'm not going to be completely on. I think we just need to know that our energy needs to be topped up. It needs to be appropriate for the movement, the amount of work that we're doing. So how does an F1 car and our bodies differ? This is a friend of mine and I. We've got 3 different energy sources as I described. So we have fat, carbohydrates, and protein. An F1 car, it has a single one. And the only reason they have a single one is they only want one energy system firing. They want to be 100% on while that car is moving. So it differs from the way we approach things. When we're really high activity, we're going to rely on carbohydrates. When we're, kind of that lower intensity, we're going to switch systems. F1 car doesn't have the ability to do that. So we have different storage capacities depending on the fuel type, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. And I think I just already talked about that piece. So Carbohydrates, most efficient, higher intensity exercise is what they're going to support, plus brain function. Fat, most abundant source of energy, fuels lower intensity, long duration activities. So fat would be like the 24-hour Le Mans. So if you're trying to drive a car for 24 hours, think of the fat energy system doing that. Even though that analogy doesn't completely play, I get it. Protein is for our bodies is really a backup energy source. And I think that we should all guard against getting to a place where we're using protein as an energy source. So it's really considered a last resort energy. Um, and what happens if we get there? So we run out, this happens in extreme starvation, um, extreme conditions of sports. So if you were to do an ultra marathon, like an Ironman, you start to get there, but not necessarily if you fuel appropriately. But when you are, pushing your body, let's say I'm pushing my body at a high intensity level and I run out of carbohydrates, my body might start fueling on the muscles and I'll be catabolizing my muscles and we don't want to get energy that way. There's better ways of getting there. So protein is really only, it's a last resort. So don't think of it as an energy source. I encourage you not to anyway. So carbohydrates, how much do we store in the body? It ranges from about 400 to 700 grams. And that's really dependent on, well, first of all, does anybody know where carbohydrates are stored? There's two places in the body that they're stored. Anyone have any answers? They're stored in your muscles, and a smaller amount is stored in your liver. So the bigger our muscles, the more uh, carbohydrates that can be stored there. And it should be known, I didn't know this until I think I learned this about a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ago, that you can deplete the carbohydrates in one muscle, still have full carbohydrates in the others, and you're not going to get at them. So, which tells me that you can get to a point of glycogen depletion, get to a point where you're not fueling muscles at that, able to fuel them to do the high intensity work if it's predominantly one muscle. So if I lose it in my quads, even though I might have some in my back muscles and such, I'm probably not going to get to those. The liver will flow some carbohydrates, put it in our bloodstream to help us out. But it's in your muscles and your liver, but it's limited as I guess is what I'm trying to get across. And you generally have about 1,600 to 2,800 calories. We probably heard that about hitting a wall in a marathon that often comes around 20 miles for someone, and that can be debilitating. I've experienced it, and it's just when you are running out of stored carbohydrates. So you just don't have the ability to fire the muscles at the intensity you were before. If you do or try to, what happens is you go into oxygen debt. So, and the reason that is to convert fat into an energy source to fire the muscle, it takes a little bit more oxygen than carbohydrates does. That's why it's the preferred energy source. So you're just going to have to slow down if you run out of carbohydrates. But we're not talking about this today, but if you're fueling some exercise, the way to avoid that or lengthen the amount of time that you can have, carbohydrates to fuel your muscles is take some in while you're going. And you've seen, if anybody's from the cycling world, you can see that what's happening in pro cycling and triathlon for that matter, many sports is we're learning to take more carbohydrates than we used to. It used to be kind of capped when I first got involved with this business. People said 60, then it went to 90. Now you're hearing about cyclists getting 150. I don't know if they're using all 150, but certainly pushing the needle and you're seeing better times over time. So I think they've got something. Fat storage, another place that we store. I would guess, I don't know this for sure, that I'm probably around 18, maybe 20% body fat. That I don't know why that's going off. About 18 to 20% body fat, which means I have more than enough energy to cover a lot of ground if I'm at lower intensity. So if I was doing a moderate bike ride, keeping it, lower pace, I could probably travel about 4,000 kilometers on the fat that I have on my body. So it's just straight math. So we have almost an unlimited amount of energy in this in fat, but it's energy that will only propel us at a certain intensity. The next one is protein. I asked this question, maybe some of you know this, you've heard me say this before. How much protein can the body store? Um, this answer is really important um, and speaks to the timing of when we should take protein. So the answer, maybe you're going to guess or already have guessed, is zero. We do not store protein. Our body does not have the capability of storing protein. And if you think about that now or think about it later, this should then tell you that the timing of protein is super important. We need to be taking it frequently throughout the day and don't go long periods where you're not taking protein. Uh, the reason being is to build muscle, you need protein present, and specifically the amino acids within the protein. One of the keys, I'll talk about it a little bit later, is leucine to drive muscle protein synthesis. So you have this response, usually exercise plus protein, leucine is going to help you with that. So timing really matters, and timing matters because you don't have the ability to store protein like we do carbohydrates and fats. So when I say what should my pie look like, I'm not talking about an apple pie or cherry pie. I'm talking about what your pie should look like in relation, if you did a pie chart, the proportion of carbohydrates, fats, and protein of your total calories. And that's going to differ depending on what you're looking to achieve. So I'll share them. So the first, and these are general terms, and you have to find what works for you. Um, but generally, a balanced diet, most will say that you should be around 50% carbs, 25% protein, 25% fat. And if you run through the math for like a 2000 diet, 2000 calorie diet, if that's about what mine should be with no activity, you can see what that translates into. If I'm looking for weight loss, if I'm going to run a calorie deficit, meaning I'm taking in less calories than I need, I need to increase the amount of protein that I'm taking as a total percent. And I would do that to guard against too much muscle loss. So when we lose weight, if we're in a situation where we're losing weight, either we're trying to lose weight or it's just happening, through, whatever is going on in life, um, that fat, or sorry, the loss won't be just in the form of fat. Um, it'll be in the form of protein and fat. You can reduce the amount of protein or muscles, rather, that you muscle loss if you keep your protein a little bit higher while you're in calorie deficit. So if there's a situation where you're going to be taking in less calories, either intended or not, you should bump up your calories, and that number may move to about 40%. And then the last one is, like, if you're, highly active, you're highly high endurance athlete, the amount of carbs that you're going to be taking in is going to increase as a percent of your total. It may go up to 60%, could go higher if you're really a really high volume athlete. And you see the protein comes down and you say, well, geez, why is it only 20%? They still need a lot of protein. Um, they might be taking 4 or 5,000 calories in. So 20% of that number is still a lot of protein and probably enough to do what they need from a muscle standpoint. So I'm not going to get into the details of everybody here, but I do think it's wise for you to look at these and understand, where your percentages should be, um, and make sure that you're getting the amount of calories in that you need to support your movement, but the right type of calories, where they're coming from, is important. If you've seen me present before, I absolutely love this analogy of a brick wall and what it represents. I've heard several researchers talk about this brick wall, Stu included. The concept is that the brick wall is your muscles, and there's always bricks coming out of this wall, um, which is happening in our muscles. So it's a natural process for us to lose or have our muscles denature. It's just naturally occurring. In fact, if you were to look down at your arm, every muscle fiber in your arm, muscle cell, will be completely replaced within 2 months from now. So in 2 months, there's not going to be any protein, or sorry, any muscle that exists in my arm that is present then. So again, it's like that zero, storage. Um, this is another one of those thoughts that if I know that muscle is constantly turning over, breaking down, um, then I should be putting the right building blocks. I should be taking the precautions to be putting bricks in that wall at a rate that they're naturally occurring, naturally coming out if I want to maintain muscle mass. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's not just the protein getting the right amount. I really want to stress, and I've got um, a resource that you can take a look at on your own time. Um, Exercise is one of the most important aspects, and specifically resistance. It's one of the biggest determinants whether someone's going to have good muscle health. Um, Exercise with protein is kind of what you want to do. If you do both of those, you're going to be in good shape. Okay, how much protein do I need? Here's a simple tool we put together a little bit ago. Um, this chart is based on 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight per day. And this would be for someone that's above 40 degrees or 40 degrees, greater than 40 years old, um, or is highly active. Um, what happens when we turn 40? After we get into that fifth decade, um, our body's ability to utilize protein is dampened. So it's a little bit less efficient at using that dose of protein that used to work when we were younger. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just needs, Stu will put it like he talks about a key. It's like it just takes a little bit more to turn that key, to turn that muscle protein synthesis on. So I might have only needed about 100 grams before. Uh, Now that I'm in my, well into my 50s, close to 60, which is crazy, um, I need more protein than I did when I was a little bit younger. So that 1.6, for me, this is actually my example. 80 kilos is what I weigh. I need about 130 grams a day. So this is a good resource that you might utilize. So as I just said, there's that 1.6 number. That's one of the things I want to walk away with today. Know that, and then do the work to figure out how you're going to get to that number if you're not already there. Um, there are theories out there that it can be a little bit lower, can be at 1.2. I'm not going to debate whether it's 1.2, 1.6. If you're not at 1.2 and getting to 1.2, it's going to make a difference for you. 1.6, there's some researchers that like to promote a number like 1.6 because there's going to be days that you don't hit it. And if you get 1.2 on a day that your target's 1.6, you're still getting a good amount. So somewhere in that neighborhood, I subscribe to a 1.2 based on what I've learned from the folks. So high volume athletes, different story. If you're pushing high volume of activity, you're going to need about 1.6 to 2.2. And that depends on the volume, um, type of athlete that you are, whether it's muscle dominant or endurance dominant. So you could be in that range as well. Most of your protein should come from real food. If you can get all of your protein, all of your energy from real food, you should do so for sure. Um, know that number, that protein number, and know how you're going to achieve that throughout your day. Um, the morning is so important. Um, and in North America, it's the most neglected time to get protein in. So if you're to look at stats for this, I think it's somewhere between 40 to 50% of North Americans are not getting enough protein in their diet in the morning. And I think that that's the wrong time, that's the wrong meal to neglect. So if you think about last night I went to bed. I went to bed about 10:30, but I probably had my last protein around 7:30. So going to take a little bit of time to digest. But I'm basically fasting through my sleep cycle. I'm not taking anything, obviously, well, not obviously, but I'm not taking anything during the night. So I'm not adding any protein or the building blocks that help support muscle. I wake up in the morning, um, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. If I'm not taking protein at that meal and at breakfast, and I wait until 12 noon when I might have some real food and get an adequate protein dose, that's an awful long time that you're in negative protein balance. So I think that's too long. Um, 16 hours of not getting, taking bricks out of the wall, being in negative protein balance. I don't think that that leads to optimal muscle health. Encourage you to find a way to get uh, whatever your protein number is for the day, divide that up into 3 to 4 doses, chunks, whatever you want to call it, and make sure you're getting that good number in the morning. And take the time to know what 30 grams looks like. You can go back to that protein per day thing that we showed you. There are some examples of, protein-rich foods. Um, do the math, figure it out. Don't just think that, hey, I had an egg or I had 2 eggs that I'm good. Um, yeah, you're part way there. 2 eggs is going to be about 12 grams. So probably not enough for most of us here. So if you're low on protein, what happens over time is you lose muscle mass. And you can, if you're low and you're training hard, you can start to feel a little bit fatigued and even overtrained. So protein's important for obviously optimal muscle health, but it'll help you feel well, feel good. So there's some examples there of some numbers. So food is fuel, making this connection. So I think sounds obvious, but I don't think everybody makes the connection that food is what's supporting the movement that we choose. So maybe Addie trains way more than I do. She's doing, way more calories. That's not the amount of energy I need to take in. I need to take the amount of energy that's right for the amount of movement that I choose. If I move a lot, I should consume a lot. If I'm not moving so much, then I should consume the amount of calories that supports or relates to that. Um, I was looking at some examples, like some crazy examples. So I don't know if you uh, Michael Phelps probably means that name is understood or recognized. He was in the neighborhood of 8 to 10,000 calories a day. That's what he would consume. But the amount of energy he was, burning in the pool, that was appropriate. I know in his base training, that's what he did. I think he cut it down to around 8,000 calories a day. But he clearly was, you know, burning a lot of calories. So he needed to consume a lot. And I can tell you that his proportions for his pie chart were probably 60-70% carbs because processing that amount of fat and protein wouldn't be necessary. So here's some examples of calories for calories burned, moderate walking, depending on the size of the person. Um, it's going to be kind of 200 calories an hour. This is around a 3.5 minute or miles per hour. So moderate. 800, or sorry, you go up to 400. You start running, you're getting in the neighborhood of 600. If it's up to larger athletes at 900, and you can see cycling, rowing, and swimming. So I think it's important for you to know these numbers so that then you can add it to your basal metabolic rate. So we all have a certain amount of calories that we need to take in just for our normal bodily functions. I don't know if everybody knows what your number is. I know my number is around 2,100 calories. So if I'm doing nothing today from an exercise beyond my kind of normal activity, um, then I need to consume around 2,100 calories. If I'm doing a lot, I need to, take in a bunch more calories to support that movement. So if we chronically consume less calories than we're burning, that leads to weight loss, and it can lead to some fatigue. Maybe you stop improving. You're not continuing to improve, get faster, more powerful, whatever you're trying to do, and it can also lead to decreased immune function. So you're going to get sick more often, more prone to colds, and just feeling a little bit run down. The opposite is true. So if I consume often, I'm consuming more calories than I'm burning. That can be weight gain. And there's times when we might want to increase weight. So if I want to increase lean muscle mass, the way to do that is make sure you're getting a good amount of protein. And most will say that you need to take about 300 calories in excess of what your total calorie burn would be. So if it was 2,800 that I was, burning for all the movement that I had on a given day, I'd probably want to take about 3,100 and have a good amount of protein in there. So this connection, I think it seems simple, but it's super important. And this is just math. And some people don't like to really acknowledge that. I don't know why that's the case, um, but it is just math. If we consume more, um, then we're burning, we're going to gain weight if we do that over a long period of time. And the opposite is true. I think when we want to stay the same, we want to, do a certain activity level, we need to fuel that amount of movement. And when we do, we're going to feel good in what we do, and our body's going to it's going to reward us for it. So the fueling type really matters as well. So um, I'll get into that in a little bit, but every image that we have on here, we show like whole foods, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, lean meats, like the things that aren't processed. These are the types of foods that you should be choosing. Generally, things that don't have labels on are most often the things that are best. So those are uh, good whole foods. So I saw this a couple presentations ago. We're the only mammal. Humans are the only mammal that really don't necessarily eat to move. Almost every other mammal out there eats the amount of food to move. There's some exceptions, like when a bear hibernates, a squirrel does certain things. They're going to eat to get through the winter, but they do that with purpose. It's a little unusual for the human. I think we have chose to sometimes eat more. I think there's food is important. We love food. And I think that we can continue to eat really well, enjoy food. But when we make the right choices, we're going to feel good more of the time. So um, this is just graphic or a kind of some diagrams that's kind of put it in a different way. So if I want to maintain the same weight, I'm going to do what's in the middle. If I want to, lose, obviously my calories in has to be more than or less than what I burn. And the opposite is true for weight gain. 3,500 calories represents 1 pound. So if you want to gain a pound over a period of a week, you need to take about 500 calories daily for that week in order to gain that pound. The opposite is true as well. So if you're running a deficit, you could expect to lose a pound if you ran a deficit of 3,500 pounds over a week. So pre and post workout, um, I don't think there's any answers that will fit for everybody here. It really matters what you're doing from a real food perspective. And I would say most of the activity that we choose to do, we don't need to necessarily supplement with, sports nutrition, pre-workout, or even, recovery. You can count on the real food that you're taking in. Um, when sometimes it gets a bit difficult, morning workouts, I think can be a time where it's hard to get the energy you need, coming off of sleeping through, the night, you're fasted. Getting some simple carbohydrates before a workout in the morning can be helpful, and some protein if it's possible, if those are well tolerated. Um, Getting the protein in before, they're still going to be around. That the protein and the leucine in particular would be around afterwards to support the recovery. Um, I think generally people can rely too heavily on recovery products. I'm one that stands to gain from people taking more of them. Um, but I'm the first to say that if you're doing an hour workout, I don't really think you need to take a recovery. I think if you come into it well fueled, you've been eating well today, you go for a 60-minute ride, 60-minute, whatever. I don't think that you need to take it. I think when you go really deep, if you did an all-out threshold workout for 60 minutes, I think then it could make sense to take a recovery product. There's this gray area, in the 90-minute range of whether you should take a recovery product or not. And most will, it's depending on the intensity there. Almost everybody will say 2 hours or more. It makes sense to do, regardless of intensity, to have some sort of recovery product. Um, and this is one of the few instances where I would prefer or promote um, a like a recovery product versus real food, because these are designed to get in your system more rapidly than real food can. Real food is going to take a couple hours to digest, even the simplest foods, and you're just not going to get to those building blocks fast enough to support the recovery. ideally you get to these nutrients within about 30 minutes to optimize recovery. So one of the rare occasions where I'm going to give the nod to something like this over real food. Um, I know this maybe not fun to track, um, but I do encourage. So if you go back and you look at, well, this is the target, this is the amount of calories I want to take in these proportions. Um, if you're looking at, hey, I want to get to my protein number, I would recommend that you use an app, whatever is available to you. Um, I use MyFitnessPal when I go in and do this. I was working with someone a couple weeks ago, took them through this process, and um, the free version of MyFitnessPal is fine. It works well. It's takes once you get going, it takes you probably about 3, 4 minutes to log your food. And I wouldn't recommend that you do it for a long time, but I do like people to do it for a couple of weeks so they know. So you know what, if you're looking for 130 grams of protein, you know what that looks like. You can assess, well, this is what I did today. Um, here's what my number was. And you may be surprised. Um, and this is just to get into, that place of knowing. And then once you understand what it is, you don't have to track. I wouldn't encourage incessantly, tracking your food. But I would encourage you to do it long enough that you know what you're getting in is close to what you need. What's in your cart, or should be? Um, you may have already heard this. Most of your shopping should be around the perimeter of a grocery store. That's where your whole foods are, the things that are going to be probably the best for you. The exception is in the middle of the grocery store, you're going to have some beans and legumes and dried fruit and such. So I'm not going to say there's nothing in the middle, but in the middle often is lots of very highly processed foods. And I think that we could do better if we ate less processed and stick to the outside, except for what you see as listed as examples there. Um, so the takeaways for today, I want you to understand the key macronutrients, which I think you all do, how we store energy, how much is stored in our body, that muscle is constantly turning over, what your protein number is. Do the math. If you want to ask me about it, uh, welcome you to, review it with me and make that connection that food is fuel. And MyFitnessPal or an app like that can help you with that. Because not only with MyFitnessPal, you can link it to your Strava, you can do many things with it, and it will actually show you how many calories, when linked, you've burned. And then as you go through your day, it'll tell you this is how many calories you have remaining to ingest. If you eat more, it'll tell you, hey, you ate a little bit more than you burned today. So it's just super easy tool to use. Use it for a little bit and you can kind of figure this stuff out if you don't already know. So some resources that I wanted to share, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions if there are any. Protein per day, I think, can be a valuable tool for you, and this will be sent to you by Addie. Um, I saw this post this morning, actually. I follow what Stu does, and he was talking about the leucine trigger. Um, the leucine trigger is basically the trigger is getting 2.5 grams of leucine. Maybe I should back up because maybe not everybody knows what leucine is. Leucine is one of the amino acids that's contained in protein. Um, Protein has like meats are going to have a certain level of protein. I know our protein powder just because I know it well. As an example, a 20 gram dose of our protein is going to have 2.9 grams of leucine. It was purposely built that way so that it gets above that leucine trigger. So the theory is if you can get to the leucine trigger, and you've stimulated the muscle, um, good things will happen from a muscle health standpoint. But if you were to go and see this, and I encourage you to do this, see this post, Stu's very clear that it's not protein alone that does this. The first stimulus and the most important thing is exercise and movement, and specifically resistance training. And he also talks about that taking, a lot more protein doesn't mean that you get a lot more benefit. He literally says in the post, you just have expensive P. So your body's only going to use so much. That's what you should take. Don't get carried away. Hear people saying, this amount of protein and leucine. No, you take the amount that you need, and good things will happen. Uh, MyFitnessPal, we've talked about. And this is a person that I have no affiliation whatsoever. Me telling you to go look at Dr. Emily Dow, you'll see that she's associated with another, company, Momentous. They make decent products. So I don't have a problem that she supports another product. I love her content. She's in, often 60 seconds, 90 seconds. She can talk to something that relates to exercise physiology, the why behind it. She puts it in terms that are understandable and they're bite-sized chunks. And I've just learned a lot by following some of her content. So it's another one that I wanted to share with you. So we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if there's any questions on the day. It was not my intent to get into, what should be on your plate today. Um, Maybe I'll take that on. I would never take that on alone. Would need someone alongside of me that has more knowledge in that space. I look at it from a perspective of these are the types of nutrients that you need, and not this is where they should come from specifically, other than whole foods. So with that, is there any questions today? Nadia?
Yes, I have one. Um, let's say my math here was 30 grams of protein per meal, like 90. Does it matter if like it's post-exercise that you have maybe 40 grams, like ideally 40 grams, and then at evening you have 20 grams, like distribute with the activities, or it doesn't really need to be that picky?
Yeah, timing matters there, Nadia. So
Okay.
if I if I did a workout, and let's say I had a protein, uh, you know, I had 30 grams like a couple hours before, that protein is still digesting in my body. And really there's no real need to go and, add on to that because you've ingested that, your body's digesting it, breaking it down into those building blocks of leucine that you need. So you might not need it. If I let's say I was doing a workout, you know, often what I do is I'll go and work out before I have my meal. Um, so if I do like a 2 hour session, I would have a recovery after that to take care of the immediate need, and then I would have my real food after that. But it really depends on timing. Um, First of all, I would try to get your total number. So take,
Yeah.
0.45, 454 times pounds, what your body weight is, and then do the math, and then spread that out over three, meals and see where you're at. Um, if it's normal for you to do a workout that's a little bit distance from one of the meals, then you could kind of incorporate that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any questions that came through, Addie?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. All right.
People just said thanks for a great presentation.
Okay. If there's nothing here, then as I said, I'm fine to talk to any one of you. We do have an a nutritional consult where we'll sit down with you personally. There's no fees to that. We do them because we think that it's helpful, but we also learn during the process. So it helps us in our learning. There's sometimes when it could be a presentation like this, it could be a nutritional consult that I don't have an answer and I'm not going to pretend to have the answer. Then I go and get the answer and that it helps me, learn. So invite you to, sign up for one of those if you wish. And yeah, if there's nothing else, I appreciate you all attending today and then look for that follow-up email within the next couple days from Addie. And yeah, I hope this was meaningful for you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming,
much.
everyone.